bit more power. And so here we go, another all-wheel drive. You can feel it helping you go around the turn. I'm wide open throttle, and then there you go. It finally got up to pretty good speed. So, like I said, driving it in the S mode is definitely a lot more fun. Welcome to Drive Culture. I'm Jonathan Rivers, and today we have the 2026 Honda HR-V All-Wheel Drive EX-L. And I'm going to tell you why this fully loaded trim might be the best one in all the HR-V lineup. So we'll go over the exterior, the interior, the powertrain, and of course, take it for a drive. So if this is content you're after or you're new to the channel, please be sure to click that bell to subscribe, to come back for more. And with that, let's get after it. Now, guys, here we have the 2026 Honda HR-V All-Wheel Drive EX-L. And we're going to talk about what's been changed for 2026 because, yes, this was a kind of what they call a mid-cycle refresh for the Honda HR-V. You know, when a car launches, the automakers wait a few years before they go ahead and make some updates. Well, now's the time for the HR-V. And we're going to point out all those differences. But first, let's talk about the HR-V. And if you watch some of our other videos here on Drive Culture, you'll know we've covered previous model years and other trims as well. But for those that don't know the history, this is technically the third generation of the Honda HR-V because originally there was a first generation that was sold in Asia and Europe, not sold here in the US. Then the second generation of Honda HR-V, which was based off of the previous Honda Fit, so kind of a smaller, what they would call a B segment type vehicle, that was the first generation here in the US. Now, that car has already gone out of production. They went and switched into this third generation Honda HR-V, which is now based on the platform that like the Civic uses. So it's a much bigger vehicle than the second generation or the first generation, depending on how you look at it. But the key is that the HR-V is sold around the world in lots of marketplaces, and sometimes it actually even has a different name depending on the marketplace it's in. But today we're going to talk about this US spec Honda HR-V. Now, there's three trims in the lineup today. So there's an LX, kind of an entry-level trim. There's a sport trim, which gives you, a little bit more sporty accents, bigger wheels. And then there's this fully loaded EX-L trim with all the bells and whistles. Now, no matter which trim you go with, you can actually add all-wheel drive because otherwise every trim is going to be front-wheel drive only. So you got to pay up, of course, to do that. So the car that we have here is fully loaded. So the MSRP of an EX-L trim is $30,050 MSRP. But like I said, because this one is fully loaded, which means it also has that all-wheel drive, that's an extra $1,500, which makes this $31,550 MSRP, not including paint, D&H, things like that. But let's talk about paint because the color that we have here today is called Modern Steel Metallic, which actually is a really nice color and doesn't cost you anything extra. Now, of course, if you choose some of the other more premium colors, you do have to pay an additional $455 MSRP on top of that. But this one, there's no upcharge, and that's a nice thing because, like I said, this is a good color on the HR-V. So next, let's go ahead and do a full exterior walk around of this 2026 Honda HR-V all-wheel drive EX-L. All right, guys, here we are with the exterior design of the 2026 Honda HR-V all-wheel drive EX-L. Now, like I said, the 2026 marks a mid-cycle refresh for the HR-V, but honestly, they didn't really make any like big sheet metal changes or anything like that. It's all related to just small little minor details because I think the HR-V was well received as it relates to its design. So first, let's talk about the sheet metal on this US spec second generation HR-V. So, some very strong character lines here in the hood. This is that modern steel metallic paint, like I said, which is no additional upcharge, which is nice given that it is a premium design. You can really see it kind of pop in the sunlight there. You do have some LED headlights, daytime running lights. Those look really premium for the class as well. let's go ahead and take a look at the front fascia. You got that big, bold Honda H in chrome. And kind of the grille design, again, none of that's changed, but still looks very aggressive for this segment, looks very premium. You have these large, like honeycomb openings here in a piano black design for the grille. You can also see some of the parking sensors, which are on this top trim, that are integrated not only into the grille down here in both the left and right, but also in the front fascia as well. So those, you have four parking sensors up front. You get these big black, piano black accents here on the sides. Of course, if you go down low, you can see the opening there to help with the radiators and things like that. But again, they didn't really change the overall exterior design. Let me know what you guys think of the design down in the comments below. So let's go ahead and kind of take in the full side profile here of the HR-V. So like I said, no big sheet metal changes, still has the same design, looks really premium, appropriate for its class. One of the big changes though that they made for this pre-refresh were related to the wheels, and that was true on some of the other trims as well. If you guys have already watched, I do have an all-wheel drive sport trim video on the channel, and we talk about what changes they made to the wheels there. But here, let's go ahead and focus in on this EXL. So here are the new wheel designs for the Honda HR-V for 2026. So the nice thing is you wouldn't think, but before this pre-refresh on this top trim, you actually had a 17-inch wheel. So now they've upsized it to an 18-inch wheel, and it's a really nice design. So it's a Berlina black wheel, black lug nuts, and then they went ahead and even machine finished some of the surfacing to make it look really premium. So these are 225 55R18 wheels and tires. So a good size wheel and tire. And again, I think that really helps to make the overall presence of HR-V look much more premium versus the 17-inch wheels that were on the car before. You do get the black window treatment, the lower black side sill, some premium side mirrors here with the LED integrated turn signals there. They're not power folding, of course, given the class, but they do look really nice. You, of course, have easy access for both the driver and the passenger to lock and unlock the doors. And again, even in the rear here, you got a square setup, so it won't cover the rear wheels and tires there. But next, let's go ahead and just kind of take in the full rear profile of the HR-V, because I think this is one of the best views of the car. You can see it's got that prominent chrome Honda H badge there. Over if you look right above it, it does have a rear wiper for the glass, but right below that, you can see it actually has all-wheel drive sticker there. So it's not like a chrome candy bar badge for all-wheel drive. You do get HR-V in chrome down here on the left. And then along this black lower piece of the bumper, you can see that there are four nicely integrated parking sensors as well, plus that kind of painted silver lower accent down below. So no dual exposed exhaust or anything like that. But again, like I said, with the LED, tail lights here, kind of really look premium on the HR-V. I think it looks sporty and an overall nice design, especially with this little like roof spoiler here. I think that also helps to really make it look a little bit more sporty. So let me know what you guys think about the exterior design of the Honda HR-V. But I think we've covered everything on the exterior. So next, let's go ahead and hop inside to talk about the interior. All right, next, let's go ahead and talk about the interior of this 2026 Honda HR-V EX-L. Now, like I said, this is the top trim for the HR-V. So there's a lot of upgraded features and premium touch points versus the entry-level trims. So first and foremost, let's talk about the dash. So it's a really nice dash, low, great visibility, but also really premium touch points. One of them happens to be right here on the front of the dash. The fact that you have this kind of leather padding that goes all across the dash, even over on the driver's side as well, looks really premium. There's even contrast stitching, and the fact that this car has the gray stone, kind of gray colored interior, it makes this like a very nice premium light gray material. So really helps to break up the overall dash design. Inside of that, you have a really premium honeycomb design for all of the climate control vents. It's an actual kind of like metal material. There's nice chrome accents that go all the way around it. The joysticks to control the vents are also very premium and easy to use, and so it really helps to elevate the overall look and feel of the HR-V. So next, let's go ahead and talk about the steering wheel. So it's a great size, shape, and diameter. It's leather material, contrast stitching. You get all your volume controls on the left, all your cruise control, ADAS controls on the right. Nice chrome Honda badge here in the center. Silver accent down on the bottom of the spokes. It looks really premium, but it's like I said, it's just really small, and so it helps overall with the driving, which we'll talk about during that part of the review. Next, let's talk about the overall center console. So you have all your climate controls here, and yes, they're actual manual controls. Everything is buttons. The knobs have this very tactile feel and clickety sound to them. Easy access to all your climate controls, which is great. If you come further down, you now have two USB-C charge ports, one for data, one purely for charging. And then below that, you have a wireless charging pad as well. Coming a little bit further back, you've got two large cup holders, and then this whole kind of floating center design for the console, which is really nice because it's sturdy, well built, but you've also got this kind of padded leather material for both the driver and passenger side, which is really nice because you can just kind of rest your knee up against it and not bang it up against some hard plastic. There's even contrast stitching here. And then when you get to the middle, it's kind of like this open design here. It's a rubberized mat, so you could place things down here. And then you've actually got a USB-C charge port here on the driver's side. Nothing here on the passenger side, though. Kind of coming on top of that, though, you have the mechanical shifter to change your gears. You have a drive mode selector behind that, hill descent control, electronic parking brake, and brake hold function as well. Of course, if you open up the center console area here, it's a nice deep area. You can store plenty of things. Overall, really premium touch points right here as well. But let's talk about the seats. So like I said, this is that gray interior. So the seats are great in the HR-V. They're well bolstered, they're soft. Now, it's manual on the passenger, but you do get power here on the driver's side. They also have lots of contrast stitching, perforation, and there are three-stage heated seats for both the driver and passenger as well. Lastly, from kind of materials, let's talk about the doors. You got lots of soft touch materials, nice, premium window controls. You don't get driver memory seating though here on the driver side seat, which is power. You do get a lot of the same leather material, contrast material here on the door though, so that's very, very nice. But next, let's also talk about some of the tech and upgrades that you get on this HR-V. So here in the center, you got a large 9-inch color touchscreen. It does have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto compatibility, which is great. Doesn't get Google built in, but you at least have all that smartphone connectivity right in front of you. You do have a kind of half digital, half analog digital instrument cluster going on here. So on the left side, it's digital. On the right side, it's actually an analog gauge for your speedometer. But for the digital portion, you can display like, album artwork, basic navigation directions, range, fuel, things like that. So you do get some customization there. Lastly, let's talk about the audio. So on this top trim, you actually get an 8-speaker 180-watt audio system. Now, they don't even offer Bose on the HR-V, but let me know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. Would you like the more premium audio system? I'll tell you what, the base system comes with 6 speakers. This higher trim comes with 8 speakers. And I tell you, with the right tweaking of the equalizer and a good sound source, the audio quality in this car is actually really, really good. In fact, I think you might be able to trick some people to think that it actually is the Bose premium sound system. That's how good it is, given that it's only 8 speakers. Lastly, I did want to mention the moonroof here. It's got a manual shade. It does tilt and open all the way up. So again, lots of premium features, given that this car is, again, just a little over $30,000 MSRP. So next, let's go ahead and hop in the second row. All right, here we are in the second row of the Honda HR-V EX-L. So there is a lot of space back here, guys. This is my actual driving position, but I always say I'm about 5'10". I have tons of knee room back here. Really easy to put my feet up under the seat. Tons of headroom. Great, room going this way across the shoulders. For the center seat, it's slightly lowered down, which helps for the person sitting here in the middle. There's only a small hump in the Ford too, even though this car does have that all-wheel drive drivetrain. There is no pull-down cup holder in the rear though. So while you can easily fit, three adults, the center seat might be a little tight if you have three large adults back here. But again, overall, a lot of great space given how small this vehicle is. You do get a lot of the same premium touch points that you get from the first row, all the leather material. It's all that gray leather back here with the contrast stitching. You get the same materials here on the door. You can see the speakers are nicely integrated into the door lining as well. Overall, a lot of premium touch points. Even the way they've kind of done the bottom of the door, the plastic has these like additional ribs in there, which just give it a nice little design finish. You do get one map pocket here in the back of the passenger seat. Nothing on here on the driver's side seat. And for the back center console area, there's no charge ports, nor are there any kind of vents back here. So it's just kind of a small pocket that's integrated here. But again, given the price point and where it is in the class, is probably appropriate. So let's also talk about here. So I always have this kind of booster seat here to show a reference for, if you want to have kids in your back seat, plenty of space for them, easy to access the latch points. And of course, you could even fit one of those large rear-facing child seats here in the second row as well. No problems. The last thing I'll mention are the lights in the back. They're kind of this, touch-sensitive light. All you have to do is just do a quick tap and turn on and off the light. So it's kind of a nice premium feature here in the second row. So next, let's go ahead and hop out and check out the cargo area. All right, here we are with the cargo area of the Honda HR-V EX-L. So we're going to go ahead and open it up. There is no power tailgate on any of the HR-V trims, but it's not a huge deal. There's a little latch here. You go ahead and pull on it. It opens right up. The struts take it all the way up. So that isn't a feature on HR-V, but let me know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. Is that something you actually want? Like I said, for a little over 30 grand, I maybe wouldn't expect it, but like I said, it's very easy to open the rear hatch. And once you do, there's a ton of space back here, guys. Now, you do have 60/40 rear folding seats in the back, but with them up, you have 24.4 cubic feet of space back here. So lots of space back here, nice carpeted material. You got some LED lights back here. And what's nice, if you actually go under the floor here, in the first section, you'll see three cutouts into the foam, which gives you a little bit of extra underfloor storage. If you lift that up to the next level, you'll see that there's actually a jack and the equipment to take off your wheel in case you ever get a flat. And the reason why is down below, there's actually a full-size spare tire in this thing. So that's a really nice feature to have, especially at this price point. And then lastly, of course, like I said, 24.4 cubic feet of space with the seats up, but if you fold those down, that more than doubles. So you get lots of space back here, can easily crush some Costco runs and other kind of Home Depot runs if you need it. So overall, good space. So next, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain. All right, next, let's go ahead and talk about the powertrain of this Honda HR-V all-wheel drive EX-L. So first, let's go ahead and talk about this engine. So as I mentioned, this is a, what they call a mid-cycle refresh where they made some updates, but they actually didn't touch the powertrain for the Honda HR-V. So it's the same engine and transmission and drivetrain that was in the pre-refresh for this 2026. So it's a 2-liter, 4-cylinder, naturally aspirated engine. And in this configuration here, it makes 158 horsepower and 138 pound-feet of torque. It's made it exclusively to a CVT transmission. But like I said, all trims start off as a front-wheel drive layout, and then you can pay extra to add in the all-wheel drive capability. But there's no better way than to prove that out than to get behind the wheel. So next, let's go ahead and take this thing for a drive. All right, guys, here we are inside the 2026 Honda HR-V EX-L all-wheel drive. We're gonna go ahead and take this thing for a drive. So I grab my seatbelt here. All right, plug that in, foot on the brake, hit the engine start stop button. All right, so we'll go ahead and take off, and like always, give my driving impressions, talk about the different drive modes, chassis, suspension, things like that. So we're gonna go ahead and set off. It does have the electronic parking brake with brake hold function, which again means that once you have your seatbelt on, you put it into gear, into drive, you can take off. You don't actually have to manually disengage the parking brake. So that's a nice little feature. So we're gonna go ahead and set off here. And you know, one of the things that I've talked about in many of the different reviews, whether it's the HR-V, the Civic, the Integra, all these cars that ride on this kind of small, you know, architecture that Honda and Acura uses, is just so good this generation, right? The 11th generation Civic, this, you know, 2nd generation HR-V, obviously the 5th generation Integra. All these cars feel like they're the right size. They also feel like they're very premium, and they just have really good chassis and driving dynamics. And you know, being a small compact SUV, maybe that's not your priority, but it is nice to know that you can have some fun when you want to. So we're gonna go ahead and do this little drive route here. So while I'm stopped here at the light, let's go ahead and talk about the drive modes in HR-V. So again, it's not a sports car. There's no Type R, there's nothing crazy like that. So really, it's going to be pretty basic. So with the drive modes, you have a little toggle switch here in the center. You only get 3 modes. So essentially you have the default, which is normal mode, which, you know, again, we'll drive for most of the review. There's an econ mode, and all that's going to do is kind of, you know, dial back the throttle response, kind of adjust some of the climate settings, and really just try to give you the best MPG possible. In fact, I'll go ahead and put the MPG down here so you can see it for this trim. And then lastly, there's a snow mode, and here in Southern California right now, we won't have to use that. And all that's gonna do is adjust the traction, right? And give you the best driving performance in inclement weather situations. So really that's it. It's just those 3 drive modes. The one thing we'll talk about, and I'll show you though, is here on the gear selector though, I'm in D for drive. If I pull it back to S, it actually gives you a little S in the digital instrument cluster. And what that does is kind of just, you know, it's not really a sport mode, but it does give the car a little bit more sense of urgency. And so we'll try that out as well. But we're gonna start in D, start in normal mode, and then we'll switch to the other modes so you can see how they behave. All right, so here we are setting off. Again, in normal mode, in the D function. And again, this is the naturally aspirated 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. So no turbocharging here. So you don't get a lot of that kind of low-end mid-range torque that you get out of the turbocharged engines. But, you know, once this thing gets up to speed, it gets going pretty good. Again, it's not fast, it's not meant to be fast, but, you know, it's one of those things where you got to kind of ring out the engine a little bit to get it up to speed. So here we'll go ahead and go over a couple of upcoming train tracks and speed bumps. But what I'll say is, you know, overall the NVH, the noise, vibration, harshness, how they judge how quiet or how harsh the vehicle ride is, it's really good on HR-V. And I think even on this top trim, there's just an extra little bit more refinement in the overall cabin. So here we are, we're gonna go over the speed bump. I'm gonna go over about 35 miles an hour. This first one's not too bad. Here we go. No problem there, just a little bit of noise, but that's to be expected. No vibrations, you know, didn't upset the vehicle at all. The second one here is a little bit more aggressive. I'll still try to go about 35, so same speed, but this one's a little bit more aggressive, so we'll see how it does. And here we go over it now. And it wasn't actually that, it didn't feel that much different than the first one, but it actually is a much more aggressive train track and speed bump. And if you guys have watched Drive Culture, you know I always take this route, and I mean, I've gone over that in all kinds of cars, and sometimes, especially in the lower cars or the sports cars, I mean, it'll literally like lift you out of the seat because there's that much, you know, suspension travel on those, like, you know, more stiff sports cars and things like that. But in this car, you barely noticed it. So again, it's a great city car, great daily drivability. So just for fun, I'll go back and switch into econ mode to see if there's really any difference here. And You know, the car doesn't sound any different. Steering, none of that changes. Again, like I said, this is really just to be able to hyper mile a few extra mpgs out of it. I will say I instantly noticed that the throttle is dialed back. I mean, given the amount of throttle I'm putting in, it just feels a little bit more sluggish, but again, that's on purpose to give you the best mpg. You'll even notice things, especially when it's hot outside, like it'll kind of dial back the AC also to just help you get the best mpg. So if you were doing a long road trip and maybe that was a priority, or even city driving day to day, okay, yes, that's beneficial, but otherwise I feel like you don't need it. So I'm gonna go ahead, go back up into normal, instantly get a little bit more throttle response. If I pull this back into S, now we're gonna get into it. And yeah, the car, like I said, with the S mode, there's no paddle shifter, so you can't, you know, simulate through gear shifts like you can on some of the other CVT transmissions with Honda. But, you know, definitely the S mode, it definitely feels more peppy. And then, like, the moment you step into it, the RPMs kind of like shoot up. And so, again, it's not meant to be fast, but it's just like, hey, maybe if you're merging on a freeway, you know, taking one of your favorite back canyon roads or something like that, it gives you a little bit more power. And so here we go, another all-wheel drive. You can feel it helping you go around the turn. I'm wide open throttle, and then there you go. It finally got up to pretty good speed. So, you know, like I said, driving it in the S mode is definitely a lot more fun. It definitely has a lot more pep to it. Again, it's not a full-on sport mode in the sense that, you know, the steering gets heavier, or, you know, obviously there's no adaptive dampers, so you don't get any kind of suspension changes or anything like that as well. But it's just enough where, like, again, if you were merging onto the freeway and you really wanted to get up to speed quickly, the difference between pulling it back into D and S is pretty noticeable. All right, so here we are setting off again. One last little blast here, so go ahead and get into it. I'm in the S transmission setting, and yeah, like I said, it just instantly pulls the RPMs up and gives you a lot more momentum. So here we are. We're just gonna go ahead and check out the handling, because like I was telling you earlier, the chassis in this car is really good. It doesn't have a lot of power, but it just handles really well, and there's like very little body roll. And again, it's like a small compact SUV, so you're not gonna necessarily drive it like this, but it is fun to drive. It really does have that characteristics, and as you power your way around the turns, you can really feel it. So overall, it's got really good driving dynamics. Let me know your guys' thoughts and comments down below. Are you shopping for something like the HR-V or other competitors in its class? Let me know if you want to see those competitors here on Drive Culture, because of course I'd be happy to bring you that content. And with that, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this drive review. All right, guys, that's a wrap. What did you think of the 2026 Honda HR-V all-wheel drive EX-L? Is this fully loaded trim really the best in the entire lineup of HR-Vs? Remember, it starts at the LX, the Sport, the EX-L being at the top with all the features and bells and whistles. Let me know if this is the best trim. Let me know if you want to see other trims here on the channel and or other competitors and brands as well in this compact SUV segment. Of course, I'd be happy to bring you that content. So if you joined me before, thank you so much. But if you're new to the channel, please be sure to click that bell to subscribe to come back for more. Thanks, and we'll see you at the next episode.